The library lights died with a soft collective pop. 1 second the reading room hummed with the low rustle of pages and the occasional cough. The next, absolute dark swallowed everything. A few startled gasps rose, then nervous laughter. Someone near the entrance muttered, "Great, just great," while phones blinked awake like fireflies. I stayed seated at my corner table on the 3rd floor, fingers still resting on the open textbook, heart suddenly loud in my ears for no reason I could name. Then came the footsteps. Quick, purposeful, not the hesitant shuffle of someone looking for their bag. They stopped directly behind my chair. Before I could turn, warm breath brushed my neck and a mouth pressed hard against mine. Not tentative, not questioning. A kiss that felt like it had been waiting years to happen. Fierce, certain, tasting faintly of mint and panic. My brain short-circuited. Hands flew up instinctively, one shoving at a solid chest, the other gripping the edge of the table so tightly the wood creaked. The stranger pulled back just as emergency lights flickered on, bathing the stacks in dull amber. I spun around. He was already moving, tall, lean, wearing a navy hoodie and dark jeans, face half hidden by the hood even in the weak glow. All I caught was the sharp line of his jaw, the quick rise and fall of his shoulders, and then he melted between the shelves like smoke. Gone. My lips burned. My pulse hammered so violently I thought I might be sick. Around me people were complaining about spoiled notes, dead laptops, the inevitable announcement from security crackling through a distant walkie-talkie. Nobody had seen. Nobody knew that in the 3 seconds of perfect black, my entire moral compass had spun like a broken gyroscope. I sat there until the main lights stuttered back on 20 minutes later, staring at the same paragraph I'd been reading for the last hour without absorbing a single word. His name was Julian Carver. I didn't learn that until 3 days later. It started with a single text from an unknown number the next morning.
I'm sorry.
Panicked. I shouldn't have done that. No name.
No explanation.
Just those 9 words sitting on my lock screen like a live grenade. I stared at the message for 10 full minutes before my thumb hovered over block. Something stopped me. Maybe curiosity, maybe the echo of that kiss still ghosting across my mouth. Instead I typed back, "Who is this?" 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Guy from the library. 3rd floor. Wednesday night. My stomach dropped through the floor. I should have blocked him then. Should have deleted the thread, changed my number, pretended the whole thing was a hallucination brought on by too much caffeine and exam stress. Instead I answered, "Why?" Another long pause. "Because I've watched you study there every Tuesday and Thursday for 6 weeks. Because when the lights went out, I finally had the courage to do something stupid. Because I'm an idiot." I read the message twice. Heat crawled up my neck. Part shame, part something darker I refused to name. I typed, "Don't contact me again." Sent. Then immediately regretted it. Because 30 seconds later another text arrived. "Okay, I won't. But if you ever want to know why I did it, I'll be at the same table tomorrow night at 8. No pressure. Just truth." I deleted the conversation. I blocked the number. And then I spent the rest of the day trying to convince myself I wasn't thinking about showing up. The next evening at 7:58, I was still telling myself I was only going to the library to finish my poli-sci paper. At 8:03, I walked through the heavy glass doors. He was already there. Same table. Same chair I always used. Hood down this time. Dark hair slightly messy. Green eyes that lifted the moment I appeared in the aisle. He didn't smile. Didn't wave. Just watched me with the kind of stillness that made every step toward him feel like walking into a courtroom to hear sentencing. I stopped 3 feet away. "You came," he said quietly. Voice low, a little rough, like he hadn't used it much today. "I'm leaving," I answered. But I didn't move. He nodded once, as though he'd expected exactly that response. "Fair. Then let me say this fast before you go. My name is Julian. I'm a senior, double major psych and film. I noticed you the first week of the semester because you always underline passages in blue ink and you never highlight. It's oddly specific. It stuck with me." I crossed my arms. "That's creepy." "Yeah, it is. He didn't flinch. I kept coming back anyway. Watched you from 3 tables over. Told myself it was harmless. Told myself I wasn't that guy. Then the blackout happened and every lie I'd been feeding myself collapsed in about 4 seconds. I swallowed. So you kissed me to what? Prove something. No, his gaze dropped to the table. Then back up. I kissed you because in that darkness I thought maybe, just maybe, you wouldn't hate me for it. And if you did, at least I'd finally know. Know what? The question burned on my tongue but never made it out. Instead I said, I have a girlfriend. The words landed like a slap. Julian's expression didn't change much. Just a small tightening around his eyes. I know. Emily Chen.
Priamid.
You two sit together in the quad on Fridays. She laughs at your terrible puns. My mouth went dry. You've been stalking us?
No.
Just observing. He rubbed the back of his neck. I'm not proud of it. I'm trying to explain that I'm not dangerous. Just pathetic. Silence stretched between us, brittle and sharp. I should have walked away then. Should have turned and never looked back. Instead I heard myself ask, what do you want from me? Julian looked straight into my eyes for the first time without flinching. Nothing you don't want to give. If that's nothing at all, then nothing. I just needed you to know it wasn't random. It wasn't a joke. It was the most honest thing I've done in years. I stared at him, really looked. He wasn't handsome in the effortless way some guys are. His features were too sharp, too intense, like someone had drawn him with a ruler and then smudged the edges in anger. But there was something raw in his expression that made lying to him feel impossible. I'm not gay, I said. The words tasted like ash. I know, he answered softly. You don't have to be. Then why? Because feelings don't ask for permission, Ethan. He knew my name. Of course he knew my name. I took one step back. Then another. I can't do this. I'm not asking you to. But his voice cracked on the last word. And that tiny fracture undid me more than the kiss ever had. I turned and walked out without another word. That night I lay awake beside Emily, listening to her steady breathing, and felt like a stranger in my own skin. The kiss replayed behind my eyelids on an endless loop. Not the act itself. The moment right after, when the emergency lights came on and I saw his face for the first time. He hadn't looked triumphant. He'd looked terrified. And somehow that was worse. 2 weeks passed in a haze of avoidance and guilt. I changed my library schedule. Switched to the science building lounge instead. Sat with my back to every entrance so I wouldn't accidentally see a navy hoodie in the crowd. Emily noticed I was jumpy. Asked if midterms were getting to me. I lied and said yes. I lied about a lot of things those days. Mostly to myself. Then came the Friday night party at Delta Sig. Emily dragged me there because her roommate was dating one of the brothers and we never go out anymore. I hated frat parties. Too loud. Too many drunk people shouting over music. But I went anyway, hoping noise might drown out the memory that refused to fade. Halfway through the night, I slipped outside to the back patio for air. Julian was there, leaning against the railing, alone, nursing a bottle of water. When he saw me, he straightened but didn't speak. Just waited. I could have gone back inside. Instead, I walked over and stopped a safe distance away. You're everywhere, I said. Not really. Just unlucky timing. He lifted one shoulder. Or lucky. Depends how you look at it. I shoved my hands in my pockets. I blocked your number. I know. So why are you still around? He looked at me for a long moment. Because I keep hoping you'll ask me to leave for real. Not just say the words. Mean them. My jaw clenched. I mean them. Okay. He set the bottle down. Then I'll go. But he didn't move. Neither did I. The bass from inside rattled the sliding glass doors. Someone laughed too loud on the other side of the yard. Neither of us looked away. Finally he spoke again. Quieter. You're shaking. I hadn't noticed. It's cold. I lied. He nodded like he believed me. I'll leave you alone, Ethan. For good this time. But before I do, can I say one last thing? I didn't answer. That was answer enough. I don't expect anything from you, he said. Not friendship, not forgiveness, not even understanding. I just need you to know that what happened in the library wasn't about you being a conquest or a fantasy. It was about me finally being brave enough to want something and admit it out loud, even if the answer was no. His voice stayed steady, but his hands were clenched at his sides so tightly the knuckles blanched white. I'm leaving now, he finished. You won't see me again unless you want to. He pushed off the railing and walked past me toward the side gate. I watched him go, and something inside my chest tore open. Wait! The word escaped before I could stop it. He froze mid-step, turned slowly. I hated how hopeful his expression became in that split second. I don't know what I'm doing, I said, voice cracking. I don't know what this is, but I can't stop thinking about it. About you. And that scares the hell out of me. Julian took one careful step closer. I know. I have a girlfriend. I know. I'm not. I stopped, swallowed, tried again. I've never thought about men like that. I know. Then why does it feel like I'm drowning? He didn't answer right away, just studied me like I was a question he'd been trying to solve for months. Because maybe you've been holding your breath your whole life, he said finally. And now someone's asking you to exhale. I laughed once, short, bitter. That's poetic bullshit. Maybe, he shrugged. Doesn't make it less true. We stood there in the dark for what felt like hours. Eventually, I asked the question I'd been avoiding since the blackout. Are you out? He shook his head.
No.
My family, they're not the kind of people who forgive deviations from the script. Dad's a retired cop. Mom teaches Sunday school. Younger brother's in the Marines. There's no room for maybe in that equation. So you kissed a stranger in the dark instead of dealing with it. Pretty much. I exhaled through my nose. We're both cowards. Speak for yourself, he said, but there was no heat in it, just tired honesty. Another long silence. Then I said the most dangerous thing I'd ever said out loud. I want to talk to you again. Julian's breath caught audibly. Okay. Not tonight. Not here. Okay. I need time. Take all of it. I nodded once, turned to go back inside. Ethan? I paused at the door. If you change your mind, he said softly, I'll still be here, even if it takes years. I didn't answer. I just walked back into the noise and the lights and the life I was supposed to want. But something had already shifted irreversibly. 2 nights later, I texted him from a new number I created just for this. Meet me at the old observatory on campus. Midnight Saturday. Come alone. I hit send before I could talk myself out of it. Then I threw up in the bathroom sink. Emily was asleep when I crawled back into bed. I stared at the ceiling until dawn, wondering how long a person could lie to everyone, including themselves, before the mask fused permanently to their skin. The observatory sat on the far edge of campus, abandoned since the astronomy department moved to a new building 5 years earlier. The dome was still intact, but the telescope had been removed. Now it was just a concrete shell teenagers used for drinking and making out. I arrived at 11:47, sat on the cold steps, waited. At exactly midnight, Julian appeared at the tree line, hands in his pockets, walking slowly like he was afraid I'd bolt if he moved too fast. He stopped 10 feet away. You came, he said. So did you. We didn't speak again until we were both sitting on the steps, shoulders almost touching but not quite. I broke the silence first. I told Emily I had a late study group. He nodded. My roommate thinks I'm at the gym. We both laughed, small, strained sounds that died quickly. Then I asked the question that had kept me awake for days. Why me? Julian tilted his head back, looking at the stars through the open slit in the dome. Because you look lonely even when you're smiling. The honesty hit harder than I expected. I'm not lonely, I said automatically. You are. You just don't let anyone see it. I wanted to argue, couldn't. Instead I asked, what happens if someone finds out? About us talking? About whatever this is becoming. He exhaled slowly. Your girlfriend leaves you. Your frat brothers turn it into a joke that never dies. Your parents ask questions you can't answer. Mine disown me. Maybe worse. I swallowed. Comforting. I'm not going to lie to you, Ethan. There's no version of this that's easy. Then why are we here? Because easy stopped being enough for me the night the lights went out. He turned to look at me. And I think maybe it stopped being enough for you too. I didn't deny it. We talked until 3 in the morning about nothing and everything. Classes, families, dreams we'd buried under expectations. The way fear tasted like metal in the back of your throat. When we finally stood to leave, my legs were numb from the concrete. He walked me halfway across the quad. At the edge of the lit path he stopped. This is where I turn back, he said. No one sees us together from here. I nodded. Then, without thinking, I reached out and touched his wrist. Just 2 fingers against skin. He froze. I didn't pull away. Neither did he. Good night, Julian, I whispered. Good night. I walked back to my apartment alone. But my fingers still remembered the warmth of his pulse. The next 3 weeks became a secret rhythm. Late-night texts on the burner phone. Stolen conversations in empty lecture halls after hours. Once, in the back row of a screening room during a film society event, our knees pressed together under the table for an entire documentary about climate refugees. Neither of us moved away. I told myself it wasn't cheating. I told myself it was just friendship. I told myself a lot of lies. Then Emily found the second phone. She didn't scream, didn't cry, just held it up between 2 fingers like it was contaminated. Who is she? She asked. Voice calm, deadly calm. I could have lied again. Instead I said, he. The silence that followed was louder than any explosion. She stared at me for a long time. Then she set the phone down carefully on the coffee table. I've known something was wrong for weeks, she said. I just didn't want to believe it was this. Emily, don't. She held up a hand. Don't try to explain. Don't apologize. Just tell me one thing. I waited. Was there ever a moment when you looked at me and actually wanted to stay? My throat closed. She nodded once like I'd answered. I'm going to my sister's tonight, she said. When I come back tomorrow, I want you gone. She walked past me without another word. The door closed softly behind her. I sank onto the couch and cried like I was 12 years old again, watching my father pack his suitcase after the divorce. When Julian texted an hour later, "You okay?" I couldn't answer, because I wasn't, because I'd finally exhaled, and the air tasted like ash. I moved into a studio apartment off campus the next weekend. Small.
Bore.
Smelled faintly of old carpet and regret. Julian didn't ask to come over. He waited until I was ready. Took 9 days. On the 10th night, I sent him the address. He showed up with coffee and a bag of takeout, nothing fancy, just Thai from the place near the engineering building we both liked. We ate sitting on the floor because I only had 1 chair. Afterward, we sat against opposite walls, knees drawn up, watching each other like 2 animals deciding whether to run or fight. I'm sorry about Emily, he said eventually. Don't be. She deserved better. He nodded slowly. So do you. I laughed without humor. I don't know what I deserve anymore. Julian studied me. You deserve to stop punishing yourself for feeling something real. The words landed like stones in still water. I looked down at my hands. My dad's coming to visit next month. He's bringing his new wife. They want to meet Emily. They want pictures. They want proof I'm normal. Julian didn't flinch. What are you going to tell them? I don't know. He shifted closer, slowly, giving me time to pull away. I didn't. When our shoulders touched, I felt the tension leave my body in a rush, like I'd been holding it for years. I'm scared, I admitted. I know. I don't even know what label fits. I still find women attractive. I loved Emily. But when I'm with you, I trailed off. It's different. Yeah. Different isn't wrong, Ethan. I closed my eyes. It feels wrong. Because you've been told it is. I didn't argue. We sat in silence until the streetlights came on outside. Then Julian asked quietly, "Can I kiss you?" My heart slammed against my ribs. I nodded. He moved slowly, careful, deliberate. One hand cupped the side of my face, thumb brushing my cheekbone. When his lips met mine, it wasn't like the blackout. This time it was gentle. This time I kissed him back. And the world didn't end. But something inside me cracked wide open. Afterward, we didn't speak. We just sat there breathing each other's air until the room grew cold. When he left at 2 a.m., he paused in the doorway. "I'm not asking for promises," he said. "Just don't disappear on me." "I won't." He smiled, small, real. "Good." The next morning, my father called. He sounded cheerful, talked about golf and the new deck they were building. Then casually asked when Emily and I were coming to dinner. I told him we broke up. Silence. Then, "What happened, son?" I stared at the wall. "Things changed," I said. He laughed like I'd made a joke. "They always do. You'll find someone else. Plenty of fish, right?" I didn't answer. After we hung up, I sat on the floor for a long time. Then I texted Julian. I told my dad. His reply came instantly. And I didn't tell him the whole truth. But I didn't lie either. "Progress," he sent back. "Maybe." That night we met at the observatory again. This time we didn't sit on the steps. We lay on our backs under the open dome and looked at stars we couldn't really see through the city light pollution. His hand found mine. I laced our fingers together. Neither of us spoke for a long time. Then I said, "I think I'm falling in love with you." Julian turned his head. "I've been in love with you since the night the lights went out." I laughed softly. "That's dramatic." "True, though." I squeezed his hand. "What happens now?" "Now we figure it out. One terrifying step at a time." I believed him. For the first time in months, I believed something. 6 months later, spring arrived with violent thunderstorms and the kind of heat that made everything sticky. We were careful. Always careful. Met in places no one we knew would go. Used the burner phones. Never posted anything together. Never held hands in public. But we were together. Really together. And that was enough. Until it wasn't. My father's visit coincided with parents' weekend. He insisted on taking me to dinner alone. No +1. No questions about Emily. Just catching up. I knew what that meant. He'd heard rumors. Someone had seen us. Or maybe Julian's brother? The Marine had found something on social media despite our precautions. We met at a steakhouse downtown. He ordered scotch. I ordered water. After the waitress left, he leaned forward. "People are talking, Ethan." My stomach turned to ice. "About what?" "You know what." I looked at my hands. "I'm seeing someone. A boy. A man." Silence thick enough to choke on. He exhaled through his nose. "Your mother and I didn't raise you for this. You didn't raise me to lie either." His jaw tightened. "This isn't about honesty. This is about choices. You can choose to stop." I laughed once. Sharp, painful. "You think it works like that?" "I think you owe it to your family to try." I stared at him. Then I stood up. "I'm not hungry. Sit down."
No.
He grabbed my wrist. Hard. Heads turned. I yanked free. "Don't touch me." He looked shocked. Like I'd slapped him. I walked out. Outside, the rain had started again. I stood under the awning and called Julian. He answered on the first ring. "Where are you?" "Downtown. Steakhouse on Maple." "I'm coming." 20 minutes later, his beat-up Civic pulled up. I got in without speaking. He drove us to the observatory. We didn't get out. Just sat in the car listening to rain hammer the roof. Finally, I said, "He told me to stop." Julian nodded slowly. And I walked out. He reached over and took my hand. "You okay?"
No.
"But I will be." We stayed like that until the storm passed. Later, back at my apartment, I looked at him across the room. "I'm done hiding," I said. He smiled, slow, relieved. "Me too." The next week, we walked across the quad holding hands. People stared. Some whispered. Some smiled. Most pretended not to notice. Emily saw us. She was sitting on a bench with new friends. Our eyes met. She gave a small nod, not forgiveness exactly. Acknowledgement. Then she looked away. That night Julian and I lay in bed. My narrow twin pushed against the wall so we could both fit. He traced circles on my chest. What happens if the world never accepts us? I asked. Then we accept each other, he answered. And that's enough. I turned to face him. Do you regret it? The kiss in the dark. He smiled softly. Never. I kissed him, slow, certain. And for the first time since the blackout, I didn't feel like I was falling. I felt like I was finally standing on solid ground. Months later, walking home from class together under late autumn leaves, Julian asked me a question. Do you think we would have found each other if the lights hadn't gone out that night? I stopped walking, looked at him, really looked. No, I said honestly. We'd still be strangers pretending we weren't lonely. He nodded. Then he asked the question that still haunts me. Was the price worth it? I think about that question every day. The friends who disappeared. The family dinners I'm no longer invited to. The nights I still wake up panicked, convinced it was all a dream. And I think about his hand in mine. The way he looks at me like I'm the only true thing in the world. The life we're building, small, fragile, fiercely ours. So I'll ask you the same thing now. Was the price worth it?